Be honest with yourself for a second. Have you ever spent, I don't know, 17 agonizing minutes adjusting a single emoji on a professional update before hitting publish?
Oh, absolutely. The internal debate over whether the rocket ship is too aggressive.
Yes, you sit there staring at the screen, your thumb hovering over your phone, completely paralyzed. You're trying to figure out if a thumbs up strikes that perfect balance of, approachable yet fiercely authoritative.
It is the modern equivalent of standing before a tribunal, really.
It totally is.
You're just sitting on your couch, heart pounding,
Yeah.
sweating over whether your tone of gratitude for some new project is like too effusive, which reads as desperate.
Right, or too dry, which just reads as arrogant and inhuman.
Exactly.
It really feels like high-stakes bomb defusal. You're staring at the keyboard, and it genuinely feels like clipping the wrong wire, or I guess using the wrong corporate buzzword, could detonate your entire career trajectory.
Which is an exhausting way to live, let alone work.
So exhausting. And that visceral underlying anxiety is exactly what we are getting into in today's deep dive. We are exploring the psychological machinery behind our online professional personas.
And it is some heavy, intricate machinery. We're essentially trying to pull back the curtain on the hidden subconscious drives fueling all these networking habits.
Yeah, I want to figure out what happens to our basic humanity when we start treating our very existence as an optimized career narrative. Because the anxiety you feel when your finger hovers over that publish button, it isn't actually about the project you're posting about at all.
Not even a little bit. Because we are no longer just sharing updates, we are auditioning for survival.
Auditioning for survival, that is bleak, but it feels so accurate.
It's the reality of it. You are trying to manifest a version of yourself that must be legible to capital, to the market, before it can even be legible to your own consciousness.
Wow.
We have fully entered this era of compulsory performativity. Think about it. The professional feed has basically become our era's confessional booth.
Oh, that's a wild comparison. But the dynamic is totally inverted, right?
Completely inverted. Instead of going to the dark booth to unburden ourselves of our sins or our failures or just the messiness of being human, we step into the blinding light of the feed to deposit curated virtues.
Right. We are seeking endorsements instead of absolution.
Precisely. And to secure those endorsements, we have to put our reality through a very specific kind of filter. We translate the sticky, ambiguous texture of lived experience into a completely frictionless brand.
Oh, I see this all the time. Like, you don't say you are experiencing crushing existential burnout.
No, of course not. You call it a strategic recalibration toward sustainable high performance.
Yes. Or you don't admit you spent the entire weekend in a depressive state of doom scrolling. You frame it as intentional disconnection to fuel creative problem solving.
Which, by the way, requires an incredible amount of psychic labor. You aren't lying, necessarily, but you are systematically stripping away all your human complexity.
Just flattening yourself out.
Exactly. And the reason we feel compelled to do this, the reason it feels compulsory, is because our internal psychological structure has fundamentally changed to adapt to the internet age.
Okay, wait. Break that down for me. How has our psychology changed?
Well, you know how Freud originally talked about the superego?
Right, the voice in your head that makes you feel guilty. The internalized authority.
That internalized voice of authority that demands moral purity. If you lived in the Victorian era, your superego was the voice of religion or strict societal morals, telling you to repress your carnal desires so you wouldn't be a sinner.
Right.
Today, that internal voice has been almost entirely replaced by the algorithmic superego.
I have to say, the algorithmic superego is a chilling phrase. It makes it sound like we've swallowed a piece of software that's now dictating our self-worth.
I mean, in many ways we have. Because instead of judging you by moral standards of right and wrong, this new superego judges you by engagement rates, by connection counts, and the aesthetic consistency of your personal brand. It demands constant optimization. And, it comes with its own modern commandments.
Oh, the commandments. Let's talk about those because they are painfully accurate. Like, thou shalt not appear stagnant.
Thou shalt reframe any uncertainty or failure as a strategic pivot.
Yes. And thou shalt perform intense gratitude even when you are actively being exploited by your employer.
So much gratitude.
Always. And my personal favorite, which I'm absolutely guilty of, thou shalt never let your profile photo age more than 18 months. Lest you remind the market of your mortality.
It's so true, though. And consider the punishment for violating these modern commandments. It isn't guilt. Guilt was the punishment of the Freudian superego.
So what's the punishment now?
Visibility anxiety. It is the absolute dread of professional irrelevance. You become terrified of slipping out of the algorithm's favor and just becoming background noise.
Because to be unseen by the algorithm is to be functionally unemployed.
Precisely.
But let me push back on this a little bit, because I think a lot of people listening might feel differently. If you talk to people who are heavily invested in their personal brand, freelancers, creators, entrepreneurs,
Sure.
they often say this process feels deeply empowering to them. It feels like taking control of their own narrative. If someone feels like they are finally the director of their own movie, choosing their own angles and highlighting their own plot lines, how is that inherently oppressive?
It feels empowering because that feeling of control is a highly effective narcotic illusion.
A narcotic illusion. Okay, tell me more about that.
We focus so intensely on managing our brand precisely because the actual underlying dread of late capitalism is completely unmanageable.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right. Because you, as an individual, you cannot control macroeconomic sources. You cannot control massive company-wide layoffs dictated by shareholders.
Or whether AI is going to make my specific skill set totally obsolete in 36 months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those realities cause profound psychological terror. But you can control how you frame your departure. You can control your headline. You can control your banner image.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, it's an adaptation mechanism?
Yes.
It gives us a manageable, bite-sized problem like, how do I present myself online today? To distract us from the massive, unmanageable problem of whether we actually have any structural security in our lives at all.
That is a perfect encapsulation.
It's like we are obsessively arranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, but making sure we use the right photo filter so it looks like an exclusive luxury cruise.
Exactly. It is a rational adaptation to a deeply irrational economic system.
Yeah.
And the real trap is that it works just enough to keep us on the treadmill.
Right, because a perfectly crafted post does get recruiters in your inbox.
It does yield networking calls. So you are incentivized to keep performing, all while slowly eroding the actual authentic self buried beneath the performance.
Which brings up a really interesting contradiction that I've been trying to wrap my head around.
What's that?
Well, if our profiles are these highly sanitized survival mechanisms designed to give us an illusion of control and competence, how do we explain the absolute flood of vulnerability posts?
The vulnerability posts.
You know the ones I mean. The highly emotional stories of failure or struggle or mental health challenges. Why on earth would we broadcast our weakest moments if the entire goal of this algorithmic superego is to look perfectly employable?
To decode that, we have to look at how the human mind disguises its true desires to sneak past its own defenses. If you look at it psychoanalytically, the professional feed operates exactly like a Freudian dream journal.
Wait, my professional feed is a dream journal.
Essentially, yes. In psychoanalysis, a dream is never just a literal movie of your thoughts. Your mind uses three main tools: displacement, condensation, and symbolic substitution.
Right, to express forbidden or unacceptable desires in a way that won't, wake you up from shock.
Precisely. And the feed does the exact same thing. Every post you see is a compromise formation. It's a psychic treaty, negotiated between a raw, unacceptable human desire and strict corporate expectation.
Let's break those tools down, because this is where the psychology gets so fascinating. We hear the term condensation a lot in dream analysis, where the brain smashes a bunch of different complex meanings into one single image.
Right.
How does condensation actually show up in someone's Tuesday afternoon career update?
Think about the ubiquitous hashtag, like hashtag grindset or hashtag hustle.
Oh, sure.
That single tiny piece of text is a masterclass in psychological condensation.
Into that one word, a person is compressing a massive, chaotic swirl of human experience.
Like what?
Like chronic sleep deprivation, a deep-seated fear of poverty, caffeine addiction, the desire to outpace their peers, and a desperate hope for financial freedom. All that messy, overwhelming reality is condensed into one tidy, heroic, highly marketable little package. Wow. Okay, so what about the vulnerability posts then? Like a senior director posting a long, harrowing story about how they almost quit last year because the pressure of leadership gave them panic attacks?
Yeah.
They are explicitly naming their fragility. Is that not actual, raw vulnerability breaking through the corporate mask?
It is not. Psychoanalytically speaking, it is a highly controlled fall. And if you look closely, they are always wearing a very secure safety harness.
A safety harness? How so?
Notice the narrative structure of those vulnerability posts. They never ever end in despair or ongoing dysfunction. They are masterclasses in narrative redemption.
Oh, you're right.
The moment of panic or doubt always magically serves as the catalyst for a breakthrough innovation or a new optimized leadership strategy.
The vulnerability is structured specifically to reinforce their ultimate competence.
Exactly. It doesn't invite true human solidarity where we all admit we're floundering. It invites aspiration.
Right. The subtext isn't, I am fragile and lost, just like you. The subtext is, I was fragile, and look how brilliantly I alchemized that weakness into professional capital.
Precisely. And then we have a tool of symbolic substitution, which brings us to the classic humble brag.
Oh, I love a good humble brag analysis. Give me an example.
Consider the post that says, just closed the biggest deal of my career after 3 months of 80-hour weeks, surviving on cold pizza.
It is always cold pizza. Or like burnt office coffee. What is the Freudian dream work happening behind the cold pizza?
The raw, underlying wish in that person's mind is simple and primal. It's, I want to be admired. I want to be seen as exceptional and worthy of love.
But they can't just say that.
No. Because if they just logged on and posted, I am exceptional and you should all admire me, the social ecosystem would punish them severely for narcissism.
Right. The algorithm does not reward pure arrogance.
So the mind uses displacement and substitution. The forbidden desire for pure admiration gets attached to the process of suffering. The cold pizza is a symbol. It stands for martyrdom. The martyrdom stands for worthiness. And that worthiness acts as a socially acceptable mask for the primal desire just to be validated for existing.
It's incredibly bleak when you lay it out like that. We have to launder our basic human need for love through the machinery of corporate sacrifice just to ask for it out loud.
It is quite bleak.
It's like a massive masquerade ball. We're all walking around in these elaborate, carefully constructed masks, secretly judging the construction of everyone else's mask while absolutely terrified that our own is going to slip.
And that masquerade analogy perfectly explains our reactions to the feed. Because if we are all doing this exhausting psychic labor, it explains the intense projection we experience.
Yes, the projection. I want to talk about this because we've all felt it. Why does it trigger us so viscerally when someone else posts about a promotion or an award or getting selected for some prestigious panel?
It's such a common reaction.
I think anyone listening can admit to feeling that sudden, sharp flicker of irritation when scrolling past someone else's good news.
And we usually comfort ourselves by saying we're just annoyed because they're being boastful or inauthentic.
Right, like, oh, they're so full of themselves.
But psychologically, it's much deeper than simple annoyance. It is the projection of your own disowned ambition.
My disowned ambition.
Yes. You have learned to rigorously repress your own desire to be celebrated, to take up space, and to demand applause because your algorithmic superego tells you to appear professional, humble, and team-oriented.
So when I see someone else breaking that rule and openly demanding recognition, it triggers the part of me that secretly wants the exact same thing.
Exactly. You judge them harshly to protect your own self-image as a virtuous, low-maintenance professional who would never stoop to such vanity.
Oh, that is so painfully true.
The comment section beneath a promotion post is essentially a theater of displaced judgment. We type, huge congratulations, so well deserved. But what the unconscious is actually screaming is, why not me? When is it my turn to be seen?
When is it my turn to be seen? Wow. But if we're constantly masking these massive primal feelings like our need for love, our ambition, our envy, the psychic energy required to keep those masks in place must be staggering.
It is completely depleting.
Which makes me wonder about our fundamental human drives. You can't just delete human nature. What actually happens to our raw drives, like our sex drive, what Freud called libido, or our aggression, which he called thanatos?
The short answer is they don't disappear, they go corporate.
They go corporate. Okay, let's look at libido first.
So when Freud talked about libido, he didn't strictly mean sexual energy. He meant the fundamental energy of vitality, curiosity, the life force, and the drive for attachment.
Okay.
Under this system of compulsory performativity, that life force gets sublimated, meaning it gets subconsciously redirected toward career milestones, networking, and notifications.
Are you saying that the dopamine hit we get from on a post is basically hijacked libido?
It is the exact same energetic currency. Think about the late night scroll through the profiles of people who are slightly more successful than you. We justify it by calling it ambition, or market research, or networking. It's not. It's the erotic charge of proximity to power.
Oh, wow.
It's libido seeking an object that can never quite possess, sustaining itself on the tension of nearness without ever reaching actual fulfillment.
It's like a parasocial romance with someone else's stock options. That is unnervingly accurate, and it explains why the scroll feels compulsive, like a physical craving.
Exactly.
If our libido is hijacked by the feed, the ego must be exhausted trying to manage all of this.
The ego is performing heroic, non-stop labor. It is stuck in the middle, acting as a real-time interpreter for a hostage situation.
Ah.
Seriously, it has to constantly translate the raw, unfiltered demands of the id. The ig is screaming, I want to rest. I am physically and emotionally exhausted.
Right.
And the ego desperately scrambles to translate that into a language the algorithmic superego will accept. So it types out, I am intentionally disengaging this weekend to optimize my creative impact for Q3.
But the translation process isn't perfect, right? I mean, the cracks have to show eventually.
They do, in the form of parapraxis,
Huh.
or what we commonly call Freudian slips.
How does a Freudian slip happen on a curated feed, though?
Well, the sheer labor of maintaining this illusion eventually bleeds through. For example, an overly earnest, slightly desperate comment on a CEO's post isn't just a networking strategy. It's a parapraxis.
It's a leak.
Yes, it's a rupture showing a deep, unresolved longing for paternal approval. Or consider the meticulously professional headshot, where the smile is perfect, but the eyes are completely dead.
Oh, we all know that headshot.
That dead-eyed stare is the exhaustion of the performance, breaking through the censorship of the brand.
Okay, if that is what happens to our life force and our ego, what about Thanatos? The death instinct. Our aggression. I'm looking at my mental image of a professional feed right now, and everyone is so aggressively polite.
Very polite.
It's an endless sea of honored and humbled and clapping hands emojis. Where does our anger and destructive urge go?
Oh, aggression is highly rewarded in the modern economy. As long as it wears a suit, Thanatos gets domesticated, it is rebranded into hustle culture. It becomes the drive for disruptive innovation or the mandate to crush our Q4 goals and eliminate the competition.
Yeah.
We celebrate raw, destructive, aggressive urges as long as they are directed at capturing market share.
But not everyone is a CEO crushing the competition. What about the average person just trying to survive their mid-level management job?
For the average worker, that unexpressed aggression turns sideways. Because you cannot safely scream at the structural precarity of the economy or yell at the shareholders demanding budget cuts.
Obviously not.
So the aggression morphs into quiet, passive-aggressive resentment toward your peers. It becomes the viciously polite Slack message.
Per my last email.
Exactly. Or even more commonly, Thanatos turns inward, becoming brutal, self-punishing perfectionism and eventual burnout.
Which brings me to a massive industry that seems designed to address this exact crisis. What does this psychoanalytic view mean for the booming self-help and professional coaching industry?
Whoa.
Because there are thousands of coaches promising to help us find our authentic voice, overcome imposter syndrome, and cure burnout. Aren't they helping us dismantle this oppressive system?
This is where things get really dark.
Yeah.
The coaching industry, by and large, quietly reinforces the very constraints it claims to fight.
Really? How?
When a professional coach teaches you how to set boundaries for sustainable output, or how to leverage your vulnerability for authentic leadership, they are not teaching you how to escape the performance. They are just giving you better tools to maintain it.
Because the end goal is still sustainable output. The goal is still to make you a better worker.
Exactly. You are paying money to intensify your own oppression. You are learning to optimize your psychological performance within a system whose fundamental unyielding demand is that you never ever stop performing.
That is so twisted.
You think you're buying freedom, but you're really just buying a shinier, more well-oiled set of gears for the machine you're trapped inside.
Man, if the professional self is this highly edited, exhausting, completely unnatural performance that we can't even coach our way out of, the logical solution seems incredibly obvious. Log off, close the laptop, delete the networking apps, retreat to the woods, and just go back to being your real, authentic self. But there's a massive psychological plot twist here, isn't there?
The ultimate plot twist. And it is this: the boundary you are desperately looking for between your professional, curated self and your real, off-the-clock self.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Because real life is also a performance.
Precisely. The idea of a pristine, unperformed true self sitting untouched underneath all this corporate branding is a comforting fantasy. You didn't learn performativity from an algorithm or a corporate onboarding seminar. You learned it in the nursery.
In the nursery. Okay, give me an example of that, because this completely called me out when I was thinking about it earlier. It proves that we are always constantly adjusting ourselves for an audience.
Think about the toddler who figures out that crying brings comfort, but sitting quietly brings praise. That child is already developing a repertoire of selves to secure love and ensure survival.
That makes total sense.
Or consider the everyday adult examples. You finish a brutal workday, you log off, and you walk into the kitchen where your partner is cooking. You let out a sigh of exhaustion.
Sure.
But in the fraction of a second before you exhale, you unconsciously edit the sigh. You make sure it has just enough exhaustion to invite care and sympathy, but not so much despair that it overwhelms your partner and causes them to emotionally withdraw.
Oh my gosh. It's the exact same dynamic when you're on the phone with your mother. You inherently soften the edges of a work frustration because you know her own anxiety lives in your setbacks.
Exactly.
You don't want to manage her panics, so you perform resilience. We are constantly unconsciously shaping ourselves to be receivable to others.
Always.
So the professional feed isn't an anomaly. It's just the industrialized, monetized, most explicit version of a psychic habit we practice all day long.
Exactly. The self is not a peach.
Right. There isn't this solid, authentic pit in the middle that you can finally reach if you strip away the branding and the pleasing. It's more like a set of Russian nesting dolls.
Yes.
And even the absolute smallest doll in the center, the one you think is the real you, is just another painted shell, specifically adapted to whoever happens to be looking at it in that moment.
A brilliant way to visualize it. And recognizing this leads us to what Freud called the family romance.
What is that?
This is the common childhood fantasy, where a child imagines they are secretly special, perhaps adopted or possessed of some hidden nobility, and that their current mundane life is just a temporary phase before their true greatness is revealed.
Okay, so how does the family romance map onto our digital professional lives?
We play it out online to survive the psychological toll of late capitalism. Think about a layoff post.
Okay.
When someone writes, "I have been impacted by the recent restructuring, but I am so grateful for the lessons learned and excited for the next chapter."
Oh, I see those all the time.
They are mapping the family romance onto economic precarity. They are actively turning themselves into the hero of a mythic journey. The layoff isn't a structural failure of the economy, it is the inciting incident of their hero's journey.
Because the human mind simply cannot tolerate meaninglessness.
No, it can't.
If we have to endure this absurd, unstable labor market where we are functionally disposable, we have to weave a grand myth around it to survive. The alternative, admitting that we are just a line item on a spreadsheet, is psychologically intolerable.
Totally intolerable.
But if we are doing all of this adapting, who or what are we adapting to right now?
This brings us to the final, most unsettling reality.
Yeah.
Historically, we adapted our nesting dolls to please our parents, our partners, or our local community.
Right.
But today, the algorithm itself has become a non-human attachment figure.
That is wild. An algorithm as an attachment figure replacing the role of a parent or a community.
Yes. It is constantly training your unconscious. It learns your vulnerabilities. It knows exactly what triggers your envy and what temporarily soothes your anxiety.
Wow.
And crucially, it rewards you for consistency over complexity. It does not want you to heal. It wants your attention. So we are unconsciously adapting our deepest psychological structures to be loved by a machine logic. A logic that cares absolute nothing for human wholeness.
We are outsourcing our self-coherence to an algorithm.
Man.
Let's pull all of this together because we've covered incredible ground.
We really have.
What we've uncovered today is that our online professional personas are not just vanity projects, and they aren't just digital resumes. They are deeply complex, exhausting psychological survival strategies.
Very much so.
We are being driven by an algorithmic superego that feeds on our primal, nursery-level need to be seen, validated, and loved.
And in the process, we are transforming our most basic human drives. Our desire for connection, our aggression, our fundamental need for rest into frictionless, marketable content, just to feel like we securely exist in the world.
So, to everyone listening, the next time you sit down to draft an update, or the next time you feel that familiar tight pang of anxiety about your digital footprint, I want you to ask yourself a question. What raw, messy, beautiful human desire had to be buried or disguised to make this post look so perfectly professional?
And if we take a step back and connect this psychological shift to the bigger picture, it raises an incredibly important, almost existential question that I think we all need to sit with. Right now, algorithms are training our unconscious minds, and the minds of an entire generation, to prioritize frictionless, marketable consistency over messy human complexity. What happens in 20 or 30 years when this algorithmically trained generation starts building the next wave of society's institutions? If our internal language of complex emotion is being flattened into hashtags and strategic pivots, will we eventually design a world entirely incapable of recognizing or even speaking the original, uncurated language of human need?
A world where we don't even know how to feel a feeling unless there's an engagement metric attached to it to validate it. That is a heavy, essential thought to carry with you, especially the next time you spend 17 minutes trying to decide if the thumbs up emoji is just a little too aggressive for a Tuesday afternoon.